1.4 billion users. And mind you, this number has easily grown, right? 1.4 billion users. All right. That's just a lot of people. Okay. People are creating Instagram. I have about 5 different Instagram accounts. So I know more people than me have multiple Instagram accounts. Right. But then there's TikTok, right? If you're like, hey, I want to do the TikTok, I want to go viral. TikTok has over a billion users as well. And TikTok has also come out saying that there are certain people that are a part of their platform. They have the ability to where they can intentionally make things go viral. Now, think about that. Somebody has the ability, i.e., the control, to determine if you go viral or not. That's wild. That's a lot of control to give somebody else. Then you might be somebody who's a blogger. You might say, well, John, I don't like to create content. I don't like to do the video. I don't like to do none of that stuff. I just want to write my thoughts. There's over 600 million blogs out there. And those 600 million blogs are on over 1.2 billion websites, I believe it was, I saw. So the word that oftentimes gets thrown around is certain markets are saturated, right? And I'm not going to say that at any of these markets, but I'm going to say that towards the podcast. People say the podcast industry is saturated. Why would I start a podcast? Everybody's starting a podcast. No, 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 no. It's just the fact that if you have considered starting a podcast or you know people who have podcasts, then it's going to seem like everybody around you does, just based off the simple fact that these individuals have brought a conversation to your forefront. So now you're going to be more aware of them. All podcast. All right, so tonight we're going to just talk about why every athlete should have a podcast, right? And if somebody's like, well, why are you the person to talk about it? Because first and foremost, I was a Division III junior college basketball team manager. Okay, so I was the guy who didn't go D1. I wanted to. I had all the D1 pictures, all the D1 schools, but that just didn't happen for me, right? So I'm going to show you how you can still build your brand, how you can still elevate yourself and propel your career forward. Once again, shout out to Coach Ed Jones, all through a podcast. So let's dive in and talk about it. But first, I want to make sure that we're all familiar with what a podcast is. And this is not the Webster's definition of a podcast, but this is my definition of a podcast. It's audio and or video that you can consume anywhere, right? So this can be on YouTube because a lot of people like to stream podcasts via YouTube. Some people like to run like Tim Bryson. Everybody can't run like Tim. We can't all run marathons. But for those individuals who do run marathons and those individuals who are out and on the go, or, you might be somewhere else. You can consume a podcast in your bathtub. You can consume a podcast while you studying on the way to wherever you're going. That's another reason why a podcast should be something that you should consider, because you get the opportunity to be in people's most intimate spaces and intimate places. All right. So just so we know, that's what a podcast is: audio and video content that can be consumed and downloaded anywhere. All right. But now let's do a little comparison, right? Because with NIL and with people trying to figure out where do I lay my hat in terms of where do I first start, because I know Mogul has done a great job in showing athletes where they can start, showing leaders where they can start and where they can begin this process. But a lot of people are still confused. Like, where do I go? Mogul has all the resources, but I still don't know where to go. First of all, y'all need to really take time and get connected with Mogul and see the resources and then see how they can help you facilitate. But Instagram has 1.4 billion users. And mind you, this number has easily grown, right? 1.4 billion users. All right. That's just a lot of people. Okay. People are creating Instagram. I have about 5 different Instagram accounts. So I know more people than me have multiple Instagram accounts. Right. But then there's TikTok, right? If you're like, hey, I want to do the TikTok, I want to go viral. TikTok has over a billion users as well. And TikTok has also come out saying that there are certain people that are a part of their platform. They have the ability to where they can intentionally make things go viral. Now think about that. Somebody has the ability, i.e., the control, to determine if you go viral or not. That's wild. That's a lot of control to give somebody else. Then you might be somebody who's a blogger. You might say, well, John, I don't like to create content. I don't like to do the video. I don't like to do none of that stuff. I just want to write my thoughts. There's over 600 million blogs out there. And those 600 million blogs are on over 1.2 billion websites, I believe it was I saw. So the word that oftentimes gets thrown around is certain markets are saturated, right? And I'm not going to say that at any of these markets, but I'm going to say that towards the podcast. People say the podcast industry is saturated. Why would I start a podcast? Everybody's starting a podcast. No. It's just the fact that if you have considered starting a podcast or you know people who have podcasts, then it's going to seem like everybody around you does, just based off the simple fact that these individuals have brought a conversation to your forefront. So now you're going to be more aware of it. Just like if you get a new red car, you're going to see red cars all over the place. Okay. It's just one of those things that happen. But let's keep going. Then LinkedIn, there is 900 million users on LinkedIn. 900 million users. And then YouTube, right? YouTube. Everybody wants to be an influencer. Everybody wants to be a creator. Let's start a YouTube channel, right? 2.2 billion users on YouTube. But John, wait a minute. Well, if all of these numbers are true, which they are because I've done my research time and time and I refresh these numbers just to be as accurate as we can be for today's presentation, because these numbers have grown over the past 3 years. But John, how many podcasts are there, right? Let's take a look. There are 4,013,116 podcasts active. I'm doing air quotes because it says that this many podcasts are active, but down below, I don't want y'all to get lost, but I'm gonna break this down and we're gonna move on because I don't want nobody to get lost in numbers. But before I break those numbers down, let me just go back. So if you were to start something and let's say you wanted to increase the opportunity of you to have visibility in that arena, would you want to start to where there's 4 million? Or would you want to plant a seed in a sea of 2 billion, 1.4 billion, a billion, 600 million, 900 million? Or would you want to just go with 4 million? That's just something to consider, right? Just something to consider. Just something to consider. But then here's the beauty of it. Even though this number of 4 million seems so large as well, right? But the fact of the matter is, if we go deeper and we look in between the lines, people in the past 60 days, well, let's go right here, the past 90 days, that's only 500,000 people that have put out an episode in the past 90 days. So in honesty, there's only about 500,000 podcasts that are active currently. So if I was to start something, I would suggest that this would be the avenue you start, because with the podcast, one of the great benefits of it is you can create, this is what we can call long form content, but with the podcast, you create a 10-minute episode, right? We can throw it up on YouTube. We pull the audio, that's the podcast part, but then we can cut up clips and that can go on TikTok or Instagram. So why not? Just consider, you're gonna do the work anyway. You're editing videos anyway to put on Instagram. You're editing content to do on TikTok. Like all these platforms, you're editing content anyway. Why not just add it to another space and place? But all right. So these are my 4 aces of podcasting, right? And I appreciate everybody who came out tonight, everybody who's hanging, who wants to learn more about podcasting, because this is what I like to call like a mini gold rush. Okay. Because one thing that isn't as advertised as often is the fact that podcasting and the creator economy, they really go hand in hand. And this industry is projected to be $100 billion industry by 2030. $100 billion, billion with a B, right? Imagine if you got 1% of that. Imagine if you got half of a percent of that. This now would put you in position. You're good. The family is good. But even beyond money, we're gonna go and talk about that right now when I break down my four aces of podcasting. So why should we really lock down and start a podcast? John, why does it make sense for me to start a podcast? So the first one is this: you own the media, right? You own the media. We've seen after the Final Four. Well, not after the Final Four. We've seen after the NCAA March Madness games. Everybody comes out, they say what they say, the post-game interviews, everything like that. But there's people that want to hear the conversation that happens in the locker room. There's people that want to hear your thoughts as you're heading back on the bus, on the plane, wherever it is, to wherever you're going. And when you have the ability to create that content, to produce that media, there's a value that goes with that. And it's not even just it's a value, but it's something that is elevated because it's exclusive, right? It's behind the scenes. We all want to see behind the scenes of our favorite athletes and what they're doing after the games. Like, what's your routine? How do you prepare for opponents? Right? How do you get ready for the game? What's your pregame meal? And when all these things come into play, this is when endorsements really make sense. Because if somebody knows that my favorite pregame shake would be like muscle milk or something like that, then I can easily reach out to muscle milk and create that partnership all through owning the media, right? So the first thing is owning the media. And here's a great example. So Pat McAfee, he has a show to where he interviewed Aaron Rodgers, right? Interviewed Aaron Rodgers, and you can see down at the bottom, there was one point in time to where there were over 400,000 people tuned into his podcast, the Pat McAfee Show. What? Pat McAfee was a kicker. Hello, somebody. He was a kicker. And a lot of times, if we've seen the football movies and different things like that, a lot of times people make fun of the kickers. But he has taken the time over the years to continue to build his brand, to continue to have interviews, to continue to have shows and build his brand to where he has the opportunity to interview a guest like Aaron Rodgers. And then after he interviews Aaron Rodgers, they're tapped in, 400 plus thousand people, and he owns that media, right? He owns that attention. If we talk about Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all of those platforms, somebody can pull your account down. They can flag your account at any point, anytime, any day. And then what are you going to do? The blue check is gone. The followers are gone. You start a podcast, then you can have the ability where you tell them to send you a DM. You get their email address. You get their phone number. Now you have a way you can contact them at any point and at any time. So the first point is owning the media. We want to own our own media, right? Because when we have the media, we have control. And then after we get that data, that's a whole nother ball game that we're playing now. My second ace is you get to build an all-star network. You get to build an all-star network. So as you can see right here, Nick Swisher, right? Messiah Russell, Nick Swisher, World Series winning baseball player. Messiah Russell, she broke the collegiate world record for the 100 hurdles. Coach John Mosley from Last Chance U, Marcus Colston, he won a Super Bowl. And to the bottom far right, this is Dennis Collin. And he was the gentleman who was in the meme, right? He was the meme at Popeyes. Somebody thought he was Lil Terrio. They said, do the dance. And he was like, that's not me. 10 years later, he's now a collegiate athlete. 10 years later, he now has an endorsement deal with Popeyes. So I saw all of these people on social media. I reached out to all of them on social media. And then I was able to interview all of them on my podcast, right? I was able to get the story behind the Popeyes meme. I was able to even hear some more of his passions. I was able to talk with Messiah Russell about her process and what she felt like leading up to the collegiate world record, breaking that and everything like that. Building your net. These are people who are now in my network, all because I interviewed them on my podcast, right? I was able to build a special relationship and a special connection all by having them on my podcast. If you don't have a podcast, it's more difficult for you to reach out, say, hey, I love to pick your brain. Nobody likes hearing that word. Nobody likes hearing that phrase. Hey, I want to pick your brain. It doesn't even sound like it'd be fun, right? But the fact of the matter is, when you have a podcast, now you have a platform to where you're offering to them for them to come on and talk about themselves. Why would people not want to talk about themselves? And when you build a rapport with them and you build a connection and you interview them, now after the conversation, they're going to have a positive perspective of you because you reached out to them, so they feel honored, right? Then after you reach out to them, then you just ask them to talk about themselves. They're going to feel great. And then after that, they're like, oh, wow, man, that was a great conversation. So at the end of the day, everybody wins. And now, like I said, they're in your network. You can hit them up and everything like that. And while you're currently playing, you have more reach than I'll ever have because you have teammates and you have colleagues who are right next to you who may be blowing up, or you might even be the individual blowing up, whatever it might be. But you can build the network all by you having the platform and giving it to them to share. And then my third one is you get to form your interest and identity. You might be in a spot to where you're not sure of what you want to do after you're through playing your sport, or you might be in a spot to where you're like, I need to figure something out. Imagine if you began to just interview other people, right? How did you get into doing engineering? How did you get into counseling? How did you get into coaching? And now you have the opportunity to where, as you're listening to other people develop themselves and how they share their processes, now you're in the spot to where you're like, wow, I never thought about this. I never thought about that. And now you can take little tidbits and apply those directly to your life. And the fourth ace is increasing your net worth. Warren Buffett said the fastest way to instantly double your net worth is by verbal and written communication. By having a podcast, you're on the mic every week, every month, however often you release an episode, and now you're getting in reps. So now when people ask you certain things about yourself, you can snap off an elevator pitch extremely quick, extremely fast. It'll be painless and it'll be seamless because you've got in practice interviewing people or even doing solo episodes. So I like to listen to my Uncle Warren. He never answers the phone when I call, but either way, he has a good point, right? We all want to increase our net worth and our network. And the best way to do that is interviewing people, right? Interviewing people, taking time to get in episodes, taking time to pull topics and things that we want to learn more about. And if you don't feel like doing the research, then find somebody who's already done it and then just ask them how they got there. But that really wraps up why I believe that every athlete should have a podcast, because you should want to increase your net worth, right? Your net worth and your network by you being able to cultivate your interests and your identity, building your network, and then at the end of the day, owning your own media. Why would you not? Ownership, at the end of the day, ownership and owning data, depending on where you're from, right? Owning that is gold, because if you have that, that gives you leverage. And when you have leverage, that brings you right back here again. It's going to help you increase your network and your net worth. And I'm Jonathan Jones. This is my podcast, Beyond the Ball. And this is where we, dive in to different individuals sharing stories, strategies, and successes on how they have succeeded beyond their degree. Tim, back to you in the studio.